Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Fun and Interactive Podcast.
All right.
Hooray! I see some people are already rolling in, which is fantastic, so hello.
Yeah, welcome everybody.
So, for those of you who were unfortunate enough to miss it, instead of being fortunate enough to make it, Justin got to stream for the first time ever on Twitch, all by himself tonight.
I did. Yeah, I did about 3 hours. That was it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
So I know that we talked about some topics, but right out of the gate, I want to hear about your experience. Like, what you thought, how you felt, what you would do if you could do it again in the future, etc., etc.
Okay. So first of all, I was super nervous going into it, which is crazy because I literally talk to people for a living. But I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could be interesting for that long, and because all of the stuff I've ever released has been on YouTube, like I have left a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. So seeing me unedited for like 3 hours, I was worried I was going to get salty and that I'd have nothing to say and stuff. But it kept going, and I had a lot of fun. People were really communicative. I played a bunch of decks that people suggested, and I had a great time. I won 3 games with mono neutral Dwemer. We played some meme decks, and we had a lot of fun. I am super impressed with all the work you put into this, though, because it was also exhausting.
Yeah, just for 3 hours, but that's to be expected, especially if it's your first time. I think a lot of people take for granted how difficult it can be, even just watching chat and then just watching a game, right? Like if you're trying to hold multiple conversations, right, and be attentive and responsive, but then also pay attention to the game, it's very akin to, early in my career, I worked like a fair number of like customer service jobs, and then even when I was getting started in certain areas, like I worked for a local police department, and part of my job was taking 911 calls. And I remember what it was like the very first time I was trying to talk and type at the same time. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's like the best like real life example that I can think of in terms of your brain's trying to do one thing and your mouth is trying to do another and your body language is trying to do another, and it definitely gets easier with time, but it also gets harder with time. Like first you get used to talking for a bit, and then you add notifications and bots and all these other things that you're trying to manage and monitor, and it's kind of a unique beast.
It was fascinating. I'm really glad I had the experience. Really glad I did it. A friend of mine let me use his internet for a while. He has Comcast. I have CenturyLink. CenturyLink's not available where I live. I live in unincorporated Jefferson County on the outskirts of the Denver Metro. And I am ready to have some high-speed internet and do this more often. Sandra and I were actually talking about it. Like, I think our plan is once we get high-speed internet to do a stream every once in a while, and then just like do it all for charity. I mean, that's our plan. I don't know how Twitch people make money, but if we do ever make any money doing Twitch, we're going to donate it all.
That would be solid.
Yeah.
There are certainly a lot of people who do charity streams, and I know that Twitch actually has some pretty decent hookups for ways that you can support certain charities. So
cool.
That would be legit, and I could certainly help you out with that kind of thing.
That'd be great. It's something I sort of got, like, we got a taste of it with we're donating the money the YouTube channel made in September to relief efforts in Puerto Rico, and once you got a taste, you got to have more.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I kind of want to ask you about your experience is what do you think would have been different about your first time streaming if nobody had showed up? Because I think of many people who don't necessarily have an audience like right into their first foray. I streamed if you can believe this, I streamed for 2 weeks before I got my first viewer.
Oh wow.
So,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
like, how do you think that would have changed things?
Um. Gosh, my first reaction honestly is like real sympathy. Um, because I know like how cool it feels to have people doing the same thing you're doing, right? Like that's why we do this, because of the shared experience and the community and the positive vibes and stuff. And so I would feel rejected, honestly. I would feel rejected, and I would feel like I wasn't creating the environment that I wanted to be creating. I was been really fortunate with the YouTube channel. I was the first guy to make a YouTube channel for the game, and so people had no choice if they wanted Legends content, but to but to come hop into my channel and watch my stupid shit. So I've never like been without an audience. It's weird. Um, that's it would I think it would hurt my feelings, to be totally honest with you.
Well, I mostly just asked it because I wanted to plug that, when I very first started, granted it was a different game and a different time, but when I
Hmm.
first started, I streamed for 2 weeks before I got a viewer. And
Hmm.
so if you are new to either streaming or content creation,
Yeah.
um, don't don't let stuff like that get to you if you can help it, right? Like that's
Yeah.
mostly what I want to just say for
Absolutely.
aspiring people or new people. Do you got to push past that? Talk to yourself. I drove my wife absolutely nuts, and I still now to this day drive her nuts because I will narrate what I'm doing around the house, and she'll all the time turn and be like, you're not streaming right now, right?" I'm like, yeah, but now it's a developed habit. So,
That's funny.
um, the best the the best advice I can give early on is hide your view count number from yourself, and then
Hmm.
just narrate if there's dead air and pretend like you have an audience. And then when people do speak up in chat, great. And then if not, like, it's no harm, no foul. Because the last thing you want to do is get into this habit where if nobody's in chat, you're not saying anything.
Yeah.
Because that's a problem twofold. One, when somebody does come in,
Right.
you might have like 10 seconds to grab their attention, and if you're waiting to speak for them to interact with you, if you're waiting to speak, and they watch for 10 seconds and they think that you're just doing nothing, like they might bail
Mhm.
out. Just have fun.
Yeah. It's true. And part of what I think helped me stay relaxed is that there were three other people in the room playing
Smash
uh,
Brothers.
Smash Brothers. There you go.
I
Obviously, I
mean,
don't have any
I,
idea how this works.
I wasn't stalking you or anything.
There were people in the room playing games, having a good time, and so it like took the pressure off. Like no one, like that other people in the room were relaxed as well. I got that cool feeling in the room. It was neat.
So the other question I want to ask, and that's because it's something that I've been aspiring to do for a long time, but I don't have the equipment for the setup that I would like.
Yeah.
But now that you've had your one outing, and now that you have
Yeah.
extensive experience with, your YouTube channel, how would you
Yeah.
feel about streaming tabletop games?
Hmm.
Because you were talking about the people
Yeah.
being there and the
That's
vibe
true.
and the good time.
That's true. If you could come up with, I mean, my idea of how that looks good involves multiple camera angles.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
No, 100%. I have envisioned how I want to do it. I just don't
Yeah,
have the equipment to do it yet. But I have like a
that makes
weekly
sense.
game night, and they have expressed interest in me broadcasting it, and
Yeah,
I'm dying to do it.
that would be cool. That would be cool. I would, you know, one of the things I watch online is in-person four-way pornography. No, I'm just kidding. In-person four-way commander games for Magic the Gathering, right? That they're sometimes on online, and I like the camaraderie and the back and forth between the people as they're playing. I almost find it more interesting than the games they're playing.
Yeah, I could see
If
that.
other people are having fun, it's easier to have fun yourself. And that brings me back actually to one of the hardest things. The thing I was most worried about with the stream was that I was going to get really, really salty at some point, and then just like not want to do it anymore. Like when I'm doing the YouTube channel, if I sit down to record something and it doesn't go well, I'm like, I just quit and I come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
With the stream, I'm committed. So, I mean, like I said, I think the one takeaway I have from this more than anything else is a tremendous amount of respect for dudes like you who are out there doing this, on a regular basis, because it was daunting, and I can imagine a lot of ways where you fuck it up pretty bad.
Yeah, it creates a whole lot of empathy for people like C. Spence. There's your name from the past.
Oh my god.
Or I don't know.
You know what though?
Everybody else, right? Like CBH.
I always felt for that guy. I always felt for that guy, and I defended him for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say like CVH, Link, the people who put in the long hours, right? The people I'm envious of because I work the many jobs that I do, so I can't put in the long hours. But
right.
Yeah.
But you and I are a little older, and like this is a hobby for us. Yeah. We're not trying to, get paid.
I know, but it's something that I enjoy. I mean, the American dream is to find something you enjoy doing, and then make a living at it, and then the old like you'll never work a day in your life cliche pops out. But like I have no illusions of grandeur that I'm ever going to make a living from this by any means, but I would say that I would welcome it if it were ever an opportunity, because I would way prefer to just keep making content instead of daydreaming about the content I want to make while I'm at my office.
Right. I understand what you're saying. Let me ask you a kind of a related question then. Let's say there is a big Elder Scrolls Legends tournament series announced, right? How much do those prizes need to be approximately for you? Because you're a good player. I think we all know that. For you to commit the time it takes to get ready for that sort of event and get in and try to win some money.
Oh, that's a fair question. I don't know. I would have to actually like sit down and think about how much time I would want to spend preparing, right? Because for me, like again, I'm kind of in a unique scenario, but I work a couple of jobs already. I have a fairly active family life, so anytime I start thinking about spending time that would break into those, I would have to like slap some sort of like monetary value to it. So let's just say hypothetically, right? Like if I'm going to, if I say to myself, I'm probably going to have to spend, 20 hours of quality prep time, whether that be testing decks, theory crafting, talking with other players, whatever, right? But like, if there's a tournament and I say like I got to spend 20 hours of time prepping, then I would have to say that, I could reasonably expect to place well enough to get X amount of dollars per hour for my time spent. That's not to say that I'm gonna like, Babe Ruth it, call my shot, guarantee I'm gonna get the money, but like I'd have to feel like I was gonna legitimately have a shot at it, Right. But I haven't actually like done stuff like that in a long time. When I was in my early 20s, I played Magic pretty competitively and pretty heavily, and I was like traveling states and states away to attend Grand Prix, but that's because I was unmarried with no kids and had one job at the time. So yeah, I don't know, that's fair.
When I was in my 20s, I used to travel from state to state to make money on my hobby too.
Yeah. You and I both dealt in addiction and some gambling lifestyles. I will admit, in my 20s I spent a lot of time at casinos as well.
Oh man, yeah. There's a reason that I don't gamble at all now, because I know what would happen.
Yeah, I am a sucker for poker. Like, I'll admit it. I will go and sit at a poker table for like 12 hours and
yeah. I love playing Texas Hold'em.
Yeah, I think I think if we were gonna say like legitimate, so I don't know what the overall prize pool would be, right? But like I would say that if I felt like I had a reasonable opportunity to personally win $1,000 or more, right? So I don't know if that's the first place prize or if it's like the semifinals prize and up, but I guess I would say like 4 digits, because in my head, if I got to the point where I ever won like $1,000 from a tournament, that's money that I could put aside and then save for traveling to other events. Because
That's true.
Ultimately, you know, everything that I've ever made from Twitch, and I was about to say or YouTube, but I've actually never received any money from YouTube. But
Really?
yeah, really, never.
How is that possible?
I don't have nearly the avid following that you do. Huh. And I guess my viewers all love Adblock. I don't know, but but seriously, like every dime, every penny, even more so that I've ever got from content creation, has always went right back into this.
Right.
So like, if I won $1,000, to me that would be like, okay, then maybe I go to like QuakeCon next year so that I can. One, see the people from Bethesda, but like I would totally record a bunch of video and turn that into like more videos, right? Or maybe I go to, you know, TwitchCon or E3 or something. But all these things that I would like to attend and would like to provide, say, like coverage on, but I just don't have the finances to do. So I would use tournament money for either that, or I would consider using tournament money for purchasing some upgrade equipment. Like my PC likes to blue screen of death on me. That's kind of an issue. Like I said, I'd love to stream some tabletop games one night a week. I think that would be a lot of fun. So I would say if I felt like I could win $1,000, I guess that's my starting spot.
Okay, that makes sense. It's an interesting question, right? Like I feel like the Bethesda and Direwolf in the game on the, you know, balance part, and Bethesda honestly on the marketing part and stuff have been really receptive to like what people talk about on the Reddit forums in particular. And you know, the new demand now that Atromancer's been nerfed, is for a competitive scene, you know, and I think it's inevitable. And you know, I'm just curious, you know, what it'll pay out, of course, but
yeah, I mean, for me, it's not even so much like the monetary reward. Like I said, like I would love to have it, but even if it was like not a monetary reward, but maybe they were like, hey, win a trip to Direwolf, right? Like come visit the office for a day. I would work really hard for that, just because then I could come visit you.
Absolutely.
But also, like I would love to meet the guys, and like I'm a dev nut, and so, you know, something like that I would also consider to be like worthy of my like all-in kind of time expenditure.
That makes sense.
Or even if it was again, like if it was you know, airfare and whatever to the conventions, right, in place of the monetary thing. If they were instead like, come hang out with us at E3, then okay, fine, because that's what I was going to use the money for anyway, right? So stuff like that, it would be, I think, also well received.
I can agree with that. That's what's up.
So, are you? Oh, you bought bits?
I had 5 somehow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was taking a second to read how that works. I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with these?
So if you're hearing this on the audio version back, Justin just cheered bits in the channel, but I have the audio trigger turned off for the podcast so that we don't get like wrecked by the loud noises. But
oh man, I literally wrote "get wrecked" as my cheer.
Yeah, I saw that. That's why I was like, what are you? Are you trying to sabotage this because it's working?
I thought it would be funny.
I mean, it is funny, but
okay, so you know, one of the things that people wanted us to talk about this week was the meta.
Yes.
It was described in various ways.
No, it was described one way over and over. Different words, same description.
Yeah.
So, in case you guys are wondering, or maybe you took a break from the game, there's a lot of people who aren't satisfied with the current meta. That's not to say that it's in a bad place. It's not to say that there aren't different decks in terms of representation. It just, I don't know what it is specifically, but it just feels like it's extra polarized this time around, right? We've had metas that are either similar or, quite frankly, like if you remember quite some time ago, we've had metas that were way less diverse than this.
I agree.
You know,
I'm thinking of control mage being the deck.
yeah. Well, I was just going to say, like, literally a year ago, like August, September, and like parts of October of 2016, were literally you played Burn and Pillage Archer, or you played Control Mage.
Yep.
October started to shift that because October of 2016 was the birth of Histgrove.
Yep.
So we saw that rise in popularity, but it didn't really kick in until late October because Histgrove was viewed in the early stages by many people as potentially being too slow, so it didn't have the quick adoption that you think it would. But
well,
people
let's
came
be
around.
clear. Not everybody. I mean, I played it day one.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying everybody. I just mean, like, it wasn't like day one hit and that's all you saw on the ladder, right? Like,
it
true. It took a bit before it really got the representation that we would expect, you know, seeing the way that it gets used today.
Right, and it was stronger back then too. So
yeah, and it was stronger. Histgrove has actually received a nerf since the last time, but yeah. So like, it's not that the meta isn't diverse. It's just that for whatever reason, people just really hate the decks they're losing to right now. Right? Like, there is no in between. You either really hate the aggressive decks, or you really hate Ramp Scout, or you really hate both of them because you can't play your wonky combo deck, right? Like that's the three pillars of hate.
Bro, I feel like you're talking to me there.
I mean, I was talking to all of us, but
fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree. I think part of it is, if I had to guess, I think part of it is that all the decks are stronger now. Right. I think that even though we look back at like Burn and Pillage Archer as like a really strong deck, I don't think it would hold up against the decks that now are running cards from, you know, the subsequent 3 expansions.
Oh, I think it would. You
think so?
I think if they reverted the Burn and Pillage nerf today, it would be all over.
You think so?
I absolutely do.
I feel like Ramp Scout destroys the current version of Ramp Scout. I feel like would destroy that deck.
I don't think so one bit, just because so for me, like, for example, if I got to put Burn and Pillage in like a charge based deck right now, or even just any of your mid-range Archer strategies where I've got any semblance of a board, Burn and Pillage means that, like, regardless of lane, regardless of what you're doing, I'm going to blow through the guards that you have assembled and keep pushing. Like, the old Burn and Pillage was so silly. I think, for me personally, I think it's just that it's I think that the meta is polarizing because the win and loss ratios are so polarizing. And what I mean by that is that like, Ramp Scout hard counters Control Mage, and Control Mage might win, you know, 1 or 2 out of 10 games. And the aggressive decks, you know, specifically like tokens that can swarm and steamroll over Scout, they're winning that, you know, again, 8 or 9 out of every 10 games. And so, you know, when you queue up, from the moment you see what the opposing class is, you kind of already know how it's going to go. And so, so you're pissed off right from the start of the match, and then every card your opponent plays just pisses you off even more, right? So there's this like slow burn of anger, where I think that if we were in a meta more, like, you can say what you want about what I call the blue mid-range meta, right, which was widely maligned for a bit, but at least those games were like 60-40, right? And at least those games, when you queued, you felt like, you know, okay, I have a chance if I play it out this way, or, you know, I know that I'm you know, the defender and not the aggressor because I didn't start with the ring, so if I just stabilize, then I can turn this around. Like, going into a game, you were going in with a strategy instead of a, well, this is a loss. And so I really feel like that is the source of a lot of the anger.
Yeah, I can agree with that. You're right, and that's not fun. Going back to a 60-40, if you feel like when you make a great play, you're rewarded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I haven't felt like that in a while. I mean, like I will say, I mean, like I play intentionally strange decks, and like so it happens with me more often than maybe like the guy who's, got an arsenal of like 3 or 4 decks that he knows are good, and he knows what their matchups are like. But yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good insight into why it feels like that.
Yeah, and even to potentially expand a little bit more,
Hmm.
not only do you like kind of expect certain things based on your matchup, but then also because of the power level that you were referencing earlier, I do think that power level does play into it, but not in terms of like what the other decks did, but just because now you get punished for your misplays even harder because the swings are that much more powerful in terms of tempo and play. So,
Yeah.
you don't lose a game. You know, I remember when the forums and Reddit and YouTube comments and etc. would be nothing about the like I hate lightning bolt because I lost to a lightning bolt in the face, and I still hear those every now and then, but they're so much more
Yeah.
rare now. Now it's like I got steamrolled and I felt like there was nothing I could do about it. Right, like Ramp Scout got
Yeah.
the nuts draw.
Right.
They drained vitality my whole board, played a bunch of guards, and then just steamrolled me. Or that token player killed me on turn 4 with the ring. There was nothing I could do about it.
Yeah.
So, like, because the power levels went up and the synergy has went up, not
Yeah.
only do your matchups feel like shit, but there are plenty of games where you just outright feel helpless because,
Yeah.
like, everything went together.
You know what that makes me think of, man? Block constructed in Magic.
Yeah,
Is that the greatest?
that is legit.
Is that the greatest format ever?
um, Sometimes there's been blocks that I really enjoyed, and there were some blocks that
Yeah.
I felt like were nightmares. Like I'll be legitimately honest with you, I did not like playing an onslaught block constructed
Okay.
because that
Was that the
was
the tribal block?
yeah, that was
Yeah.
like goblins, goblins, goblins.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. The deck that like the cards from that deck are still played sometimes in Legacy.
yeah. Or what was onslaught, or was it the set before that had astral slide? The astral slide set was also, or block was also kind of
Yeah, that
rough.
was Astral Slide was onslaught. Yeah, because it
Yeah,
was the cycle.
yeah. I was gonna say felt like that was also onslaught because I legit remember it was just like astral slide and goblins,
Yeah.
and that was the entire block. And then Mirrodin wasn't far behind. Mirrodin was Affinity and Tooth and Nail, and that was the entire block. So
Right.
there are some that I am not a fan of, but like Ravnica block, I loved. I would have played Ravnica block all day long.
Yeah. I played a couple Ravnica block flashback drafts on MTGO. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So what? I think I have to say I think I believe, having spent so much time playing this game, and this is my first experience getting so in depth with the game, that the smaller the card pool within reason, but like there's a threshold past which I don't want the card pool expanding. You know what I mean? Because I don't want decks to have that high of a power level. I want you to have to make 15, 20 choices for your deck where there's no clear best card. When I was streaming, you mentioned something like you pare down a list of 67 cards that you need to play, and then you take it down to 50 to build a deck. I feel like there's so many like auto includes now that the opportunity for expression is somewhat limited.
Yeah. So, one of the things that our viewers did pitch to us as a topic, so this is a great transition, was like, what do you do for deck building? And then how do you make changes when, things aren't performing the way you want or so forth?
Yeah.
So I personally, right, I tend to come up with an idea, come up with a plan, and then I will throw everything into the deck that would potentially help me include it. So I usually go either to like 60 plus, sometimes I hit the 70 cap, and then I have to start even thinking about other cards I would maybe include. But I always overfill, and then I pare it down, right? I'll pare it down based on curve, right? Because I don't want to be too heavy in any direction. I'll pare it down based on what I call packages. So I might say like, hey, I'm going to start by throwing in the curse package because this is an agility class. And then later on I might go, well, actually, like, the Skulk Curse stuff just isn't helping me with what I want to do, so I'll pull it out, and then that'll pull out several slots. But that's how I start my deck building.
Right.
But the reason I start this topic and I go on this tangent is because I find myself more and more often now being at 60 plus and struggling to pare down because we have that many good things, and I specifically remember it being the exact opposite around this time last year. Around this time last year, it was usually I'd get to where I had about like 38, 41, 42 cards, and then I would be looking, what can I put in that either isn't too much of a burden? What can I put in that might surprise people? What are my utility choices, my tech choices? And a lot of that stuff like just doesn't make it anymore. Like there is no utility or tech choices. Like it's the cards.
I know exactly what you mean, man. Like sometimes I'll end up with more than 50 cards in the deck, and the cards that I'm cutting first are the cards that I feel are probably the most interesting, but are the worst. And and you know, there's no point anymore when you're building a deck where you can be like, fuck it, I guess I'm running Moment of Clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Or even like there are cards that used to be like auto includes staples that you just don't even see anymore, you know, just from straight power creep, right? Daring Cutpurse used to be like an auto include agility. You played it in control, you played it in mid range, you played it in aggro, because there just weren't that many great 2-drops in agility. Basically, if you were playing an agility class, you played both the recruits and Daring Cutpurse. Like you just threw them in, and like that was part of your package. And you don't even see Cutpurse in like prophecy decks anymore. You barely see it in pilfer decks. I think a lot of that has to do with the werewolves. I
think a lot of that has to do with Dark Guardian.
I think that's fair as well. And I was actually about to segue into that. So
sorry.
No, you're fine. Like the werewolf, I was just gonna say the guaranteed benefit of a 4/3, even if it doesn't grow, is better than a 2/2 that might grow. And the werewolf doesn't need itself to trigger, where the Cutpurse did, right? So in many ways, unless you need something for agility, like color synergy with Nimble Ally or something, it's just better in almost every scenario for you. And so we've had that like direct power creep, right? And so it pushed cards out, and there was enough of that in Skyrim and enough of that in the Fall of the Dark Brotherhood that we've again hit this point now where the creativity is rough.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree completely. So there's got to be a solution, though, right? Like, and let's say that, let's just assume that we're getting new content in the next like month or so. I think that's a fair assumption. New cards added to the card pool. How do you make the game feel more diverse? Because it is relatively diverse, but how do you make it feel more diverse and more rewarding to, you know, to clever plays and stuff by adding new cards?
I mean, not to beat our dead horse to death again and then resurrect it as a zombie and then beat it to death again, but I mean, really, if you're trying to make it feel more diverse, you've got to have that lightning in a bottle Madhouse Collection style set of cards again. Because those cards introduced entire new archetypes, right? As opposed to just enhancing existing ones. And right now, the existing ones that exist today legitimately have existed since a year ago, right? You know, you and I have been talking about like what it was like in August and September and October last year. Back then, budget players played tokens, and then you had Archer and you had Control Mage, and then when October rolled around with Hisgrove, you had Ramp. And what's our meta today, right? You got tokens, you have mid-range Archer, just now it runs Unstoppable Rage, there's Control Mage, there's Ramp Scout. Now, granted, there are some other archetypes, but some of those are the direct result of the additions of new cards. So Orcs, I see play now because of you know, Sower, and because of Stone Shard, which was introduced in Madhouse. You know, you might see the time to fight charge-based aggressive decks just because there were more and more charge creatures. I mean, that's not even like an archetype emphasis. It's just we got more charge stuff, so it's easier to abuse. But you know, basically, you need to introduce cards that will introduce new archetypes if you want to like fake the diversity, because otherwise people will take the existing decks, take whatever is better out of the new stuff, replace it in those slots, and keep playing it.
I agree. You know, I agree. Like a Madhouse thing full of build around cards, synergy. You know, encouraging cards. I think this is a relevant question. Like, I think that Archaean, how you pronounce that, Venom Tongue, is a reasonably powerful card. It sees no play. I mean, I play it, but it sees no. If you're building a good deck, you don't put it in there, okay? But I'd like to see cards printed that would make you think this is a card I want to put in this deck, right? Because it's a playable enough card, and if you could print new cards that encouraged you to look at old cards, I think you could have something pretty cool going. Yeah.
I mean, I think that they've kind of been doing that even with the Venom Tongue. It's just that...
Yeah.
So Venom Tongue, you could argue sees play in like Ramp Warrior, right? Because you can
that's where I play it.
Yeah, I mean, you can use the crossbow, you can use Unstoppable Rage. The problem isn't as much that like Venom Tongue's not seeing play in Warrior. It's just that like Warrior in general doesn't see play because Scout is better.
No,
right?
I mean, I agree for the most part.
So
Warrior has one thing going for it, and that's Unstoppable Rage.
So really, I think the answer to your question would be that you can't just introduce build-around cards, but they have to be competitively viable build-around cards.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know, maybe Alter is the perfect example, right? Like you and I both avidly are big Alter fans, but like let's be honest, Alter decks just aren't like super competitive right now. I'm not saying you can't win with them. I'm just saying that
I agree.
You're not bringing that deck to a tournament if everything's on the line. And
you're actually talking to a guy who brought an Alter deck to the last TESL Championship Series.
Yeah. I'm aware. I'm trying to not throw you like publicly under the bus, but you're making it really easy to.
This is getting really rough. So I just got -1.
Yeah, I'm about to finish you off.
Oh shit.
So for me, they have to be viable, and or you could even introduce cards that take those like tier 2 and tier 3 decks and just make them more viable. So like maybe what if you had like a creature that just said like while the creature's in play, your supports can't be destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, something that can help you protect your altar. Or
it needs to not be purple or green.
Well, yeah.
Well, so like I think that other games have historically done things like this, right? Force new archetypes with build around cards. No, we were not discussing reach around cards. That is fun and interactive after hours program, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of Hearthstone's quest cards, right? Like if there was ever just like the most like apply directly to the forehead type kind of build around card, it's that, right? Like it starts in your hand every game. It costs 1. You know, like you just play it.
So this is I don't know like how well received those cards are in Hearthstone. I've been so removed from like that game and community for so long. Like I'm aware of those cards.
Yeah.
So like I might offend people saying this, but when I heard about them, I was almost like personally offended by them from a design point of view. And
I mean it is as obvious and lame as it gets.
Yeah, because to me that was literally like the developers built your deck for you. And that's also telling you that, like, they're steering the game, right? Like, whether it's in my Forge videos or whether it's on stream or whatever the case may be, I will always say that I think the most interesting cards and the most interesting design are anything that provides players with choices. I strongly and firmly believe that the fun in card games is knowing when and how to adapt and I think that's how you showcase player skill. And anytime that you can do what I call create a micro decision, right? Just those series of little decisions that over the course of a game, not like a, you know, if I do this and it goes off, it wins, otherwise I lose. But I mean like those, you know, those micro decisions throughout a game, I think are what really make the ebb and flow of a game enjoyable, at least for me.
I agree.
And those quest cards are so anti like everything that I stand for. I'm not saying that you can't have like, you know, signature cards that you don't build around. Like Alter is that, but like Alter decks let you then have other synergies along with them as well, right? This
Alter's great.
Yeah, like those quest cards. Sorry, I don't mean to rant, but like those quest cards just like piss me off. So,
and I agree with you. Now I think you could then look to the next Hearthstone attempt at this, right? Which was a little less apply directly to the forehead with a bat type thing, which was the hero cards, the Death Knight hero cards that were printed, right? These were cards with massive game-changing effects that you could build to synergize with, but you didn't build around. They didn't force you into a certain kind of archetype necessarily. A little bit more subtle, a little bit smarter, I think. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still think Hearthstone's stupid. but I think that you can. I think that there's a lot of subtlety in the Legends design for the most part. I think that the people working on the game do a good job of providing you with these sorts of options, right? I think that is the direction that we could go with this, right? I think I've been thinking about this since, like, we mentioned it a couple weeks ago. I think tribal lords for each of the 10 classes has a race that's its iconic race, right? Breton, Argonian, Nord, etc., etc. I think tribal cards, like tribal lords, would be interesting build-around cards that you couldn't shoehorn into any existing decks. That if you balanced power-wise wisely enough, you could create a whole bunch of new archetypes with.
Yeah.
Because then suddenly you think, I might play Venom Tongue in this scout deck because it's an Argonian, it's a powerful enough card, and then you have a brand new experience because you're playing a Venom Tongue on turn 3, turn 4, whatever, and you're enjoying that older card. I think you could do stuff like that with all sorts of things. I think you could do tribal, like, you know, orcs are kind of spoken for already with warriors, and they've already got all tribal lords and stuff. I think you could do giants with warrior, right? Give giants a tribal lord and a reason to play giants, and you present a whole bunch of cards like Frost Troll or Frost Troll. Shit, I think it's Frost Giant. I don't know. You have an opportunity to play all sorts of different cards. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No. I think that the biggest challenge there would just be ensuring that each tribe, if you will, feels unique, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's really easy to do like the cop-out thing and be like, hey, my lord gets +1/+1 and does like X or whatever. But I think that it would be way more interesting if each one like had a different goal in mind or a different thing that they excelled at.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I think that you know, the racial and the tribal stuff could be explored further, and they've kind of like laid some of the foundation for doing that. They just haven't went you know, terribly deep with it.
Yeah.
Real quick, somebody asked earlier, and I'm trying to get better at this for our audio folks as well. Somebody did ask what the quest cards were in Hearthstone. So the quick explanation is these are a card that when you include them in your deck, they essentially always start in your opening hand, and if you meet a certain set of requirements, aka complete the quest, you get a massive reward of some kind. And so because you always start with it, you just build your deck to accomplish the goal, and then, you know, something happens. But because you always start with it and it's specific goals, like Justin and I were saying, the decks essentially build themselves. You know, you're just playing whatever the developer wanted you to play at that point.
Right. And I think that that's sort of where, hey, hold on. Eurofox says, like Night Mother. I gotta disagree with this.
I would also disagree with that.
I triggered Night Mother today with a mono-neutral deck on the ladder.
So for me, I think the big disagreement I would have with that is twofold. One, Night Mother, I mean, there's the clear difference that, like, in this game, none of the cards are going to start in your hand. But for me, Night Mother has different ways to use it.
Yeah.
So, the goal with Night Mother is very often not always to complete the quest, if you will. There are decks you can build to trigger Night Mother and then hope it goes off and that's your win condition. Or you can play Unstoppable Rage decks and just feed somebody tokens so that you can get your breakthrough damage. Or you can throw Night Mother into your, Assassin Control deck so that your Werebats can attack 0/1s and drain and gain you health without breaking runes, right? Like, Night Mother has plenty of uses outside of, like, the quest portion of it, and it's that's the kind of design that I like, right? Because you're creating a card that you can build around, but not everyone's going to be using it the same way or doing the same thing, which is not necessarily the way the Hearthstone cards play out. So that would be, like, the difference in my opinion.
I agree. I got sidetracked, and I don't remember what I was about to say before I defended Night Mother.
Yeah, sorry. You and I both were all like, pitchforks and torches.
Right, because I think Night Mother is one of the best design cards from Fall of the Dark Brotherhood. I mean, the first thing I did with Night Mother when I saw it is I put it in a mage deck that was almost nothing but removal, and I was like, I'm going to win with Night Mother. Because it was a deck that was already running 20, 30 pieces of removal, and I was like, I can kill 20 creatures, that's easy. Oh yeah, Venom Tongues and Tribals. That's right, thank you. I was gonna say, I think that, like, if you build them right, like, you can, some of the tribes are really well established as far as, like, what they do, right? In particular, Nords have the mechanic where they break opposing runes and then cool shit happens. But a lot of the tribes are just like sort of formless races that, like Bretons, they have ward synergies, but, like, I mean, it doesn't feel like the ward thing is the Breton thing, right? Monk has Khajiits, which have Pilfer, but Pilfer is sort of a one-dimensional mechanic, and, like, you could do all sorts of cool tribal stuff with cats that make you incidentally run some of these Pilfer cards, like the 3/2 for 3 that Pilfers +3/+0, right? That's not an unreasonable card in an aggressive deck. If you had a reason to be running Khajiit cards, that's a card you'd look at, just like Venom Tongue. I really think there's a lot of cool stuff like that.
I think that they're actually slowly trying to transition us away from, like, Pilfer being the core Khajiit mechanic and really play up the movement stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
We got some additional movement stuff with Heroes of Skyrim between, like, Monk Strike and the 2/2 that gets bigger, and I think that that's a legitimate, like, good place to take it. I think there's a lot that could be done with that.
Even Grand Ball.
Yeah, Grand Ball.
Mm-hmm. Which is the coolest coolest animation in the game.
Man, I don't know if that's the coolest. Maybe I'm biased. I'm really fond of Shieldbreaker. The first time I played Shieldbreaker, I thought, like, I had done something amazing, and I was like, oh no, I just played this common card.
Yeah, but see, unfortunately, when people play Shieldbreaker against me, I'm no longer having fun.
Yeah, no, yeah. You're not watching the mechanic because you've blacked out with rage, but
exactly.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that would be kind of cool to see, movement cards played up. So right now, movement is always meant to kind of be like, I evade your guards, or, like, I move my guy and it gets bigger. We got, like, some additional utility out of Archer's Gambit, but I would personally, like, if I had a wish list, I would like to see a series of movement cards. Maybe you even, like, ability word it, and I want them to do all sorts of things when they move, right? Like, when this moves, shackle an enemy creature. When this moves, silence something. Like, I just want, like, give me, like, cards that have a toolbox. And then maybe, like, I know that there's the one with guard, right? But then maybe if you're really trying to combo it with the Pilfer thing, maybe it's also like, when this Pilfers move a friendly creature that's in the same lane, or move a creature from the opposing or the other lane into this lane, like it calls them over, like Red Rover Khajiit or something,
I like it.
So, like, I would like to see Um, all sorts of fun stuff played up, I think, with the movement mechanic in general.
You know, the two moving cats are interesting cards. The 2-drop and the 3-drop, the one with the prophecy and the one that gives +1/+1 when something moves.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when nobody played those cards, and then they got huge for a while, and now nobody plays them again.
Well, to be fair, they got huge, but then they got nerfed. So
yeah, that's true.
If you guys are relatively new to the game, there was a time when both of our Khajiits from the Dunes, they did not move a creature like that was in their lane. Like you could play it in anywhere and then move any friendly creature. So they were eventually nerfed, even when people were under pretty like solid general consensus that they weren't like overly strong as is. They were nerfed because the developers essentially said they created an uninteractive style of play, which I fully understand now. Like looking back, it didn't make sense, but you used to be able to like play a creature, right? Then your opponent plays one to respond in that lane, right? Then you attack with that creature. Like maybe it pilfers or something and it gets bigger, so your opponent plays a second creature in that lane, like maybe it's a guard or something to block you, and then you'd play one of the Dune guys in the other lane and pull that creature to you, and so now they've committed all of their resources to one lane and you just abandoned it. You don't even like leave the cat left behind as like you know, trade bait or loss. Like you just flat out set up an army in the other lane again. It was really strong back then. I think it just didn't feel as strong as it could be because everything was strong.
Yeah.
But
everything green was strong.
Yeah.
To get back to the question, like, what do we want from the meta? And like, I know one of the tweets was talking about like new content question or something like that. Like what?
Yeah.
I want to see slightly larger than Madhouse. I want to see 20 cards. I want to see 2 cards for each class. I want to see tribal cards. I want to see one like obvious tribal lord, and then one spell that really synergizes with that tribe. That's what I want to see.
So you want like the Madhouse, but tribal, like.
Yep.
All right, I could see that, and I would be 100% behind that.
Elder Scrolls Race Wars.
Yeah, it's funny because I said that in my head, and I went, nope, I'm not going to go there this time. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say the words Race Wars. I learned my lesson.
2 weeks in a row, man. 2 weeks in a row. We should get sponsored by Breitbart.
Yeah, right? Oh. Or we could get the Russians to pay for our advertising. Yeah, no, if not tribal, I wouldn't mind seeing something that was like 10 class cards and 10 neutral cards as well. And then the neutral cards, like each class card was something that was playing at maybe a new archetype or a new strategy, and then all the neutral cards were stuff that either enhanced old strategies or you know what I mean? Like just
I agree with you. Yeah. Some neutrals are great. Some build around neutrals. I need Altar of Despairer.
Altar of Derriere. Sacrifice the booty.
We all float down there. Oh, that's Derry. Shit.
Yeah, that's.
You went straight for the ass. I went to the movie It. I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know. I know that the ass is a sensitive subject for ex-cons, so.
I kept it safe.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more cards like Ultra. It's interesting because I keep saying like, you know, I want to see something like that, but you know, neither of us have like proposed an actual solution, right? So,
right.
I know
that's a good point.
I'm throwing you on the spot here, but like if you had a neutral build around card, right? So far, I would say that like of the neutral build around cards that exist, there's like maybe 3. I would say Altar. I would say like Journey to Sovngarde, and then like maybe Dragon Mound, even though that one's more like crapshoot build around. But like, what in that vein? You know, I guess Night Mother might fit as well. But like, what in that vein would you like to see that would potentially spawn a new archetype?
A cheap action like Brotherhood Sanctuary, an action. Sorry, a cheap support card like Brotherhood Sanctuary, cheap, like 1 or 2 cost. That has 0 charges on it. Okay, and it has an activated ability. I don't know what it is, but it starts with 0 charges. You play an action, you put a charge on it, and you can activate it once. So it encourages you to play actions. I mean, Action Assassin, Action Mage, those decks are way out of favor. Although I saw some of it in the Pauper Gauntlet. It's something that every color can do. And every color does it in a way that's specific to that color. So you're going to be able to spawn new archetypes, potentially, if the effect is powerful enough, in every different class that is flavorful for that class.
That's interesting. So I know that mine is going to be like kind of a cheeky cheating crossover, and I'll be honest, I don't even know if this ends up being powerful enough, but I was going to say like a neutral support, and when you play it, you target a friendly creature, and it says that creatures that share a race with the thing, right? So like the support basically just picks whatever, maybe you pick Breton, right? So your port your thing says Bretons now count as Dwemer.
Oh, cool. I like that.
So that you're taking the long-lost Dwemer decks that everybody kind of wants to play anyway, but you're saying, okay, now you've got a reason to include colors and potentially other...
Dwarven Foundry. I like it.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Because there's immediately stuff that I want to do with that. Just thinking off the top of my head, right? Like, I want the Argonian Dwemer deck because I want a ramp. Or I want the Breton Dwemer deck because I want the wards. Or I want... You know what I mean?
That's interesting. Huh. You know, a way you could... I mean, maybe we were overthinking it or maybe I was overthinking it by suggesting, oh, I want 10 lords and then 10 tribal specific cards. You could effectively do the same thing with like a handful of neutral cards, right? That trigger the first time you play a creature. Like that's the race that it triggers on from then on. You know what I mean? It would give people the opportunity to play that Forsworn deck they always wanted to play, or that Crocodile deck they always wanted to play too.
Yeah, so Erratic in chat says you can choose your race 2017 card games. Yeah, actually that's kind of even further it, right? Like you can always build your own character in Elder Scrolls games. Why can't I do it when I'm playing the card game?
I agree.
I think, and I would like in my head, right? Like this card would carry over to some of your other abilities. So like I know that there's the one robot. For the record, people are making fun of me for how I pronounce it, so I'm going to say robot from now on. There's the one robot that has the last gasp and add 2 more robots to your hand. And in my head, right, if you have that support on the board, and you've chosen Khajiit, then you could potentially get Khajiit from his last gasp now.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
I think that would really open up a lot of interesting stuff. But just, again, something like that. I was mostly kind of picking that off the top of my head because that played into both your tribal desire and my neutral build your own desire, but
I like it a lot. That's a cool idea. Wamasu deck. Yeah, I agree. I mean, because right now we just got the Shakadile and we got Ancano.
Yeah.
It was the real Wamasu.
I don't know. Like, I have nothing against Wamasu. I just want to make sure that Sue's consenting to all of this whamming.
No. Well, I mean, just like we mentioned earlier, it is 2017. If they say no, there's no whammo.
you can't just Wamasu, guys.
No, you can't. You have to ask beforehand.
You have to wake her up before you go. to go full circle on the Wham references.
I mean, I was a much bigger fan of the solo career stuff, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Put your tiny hands in mine. I will be your creature feature.
I feel like we're dating ourselves, and I don't mean like in a pleasureful sort of way, but
Bro, I have I don't even want to talk about it, but I have that album where the dude, where Michael or George Michael is showing his jeaned up ass on the cover. You know what I'm talking about?
no, I
Hold
don't.
on, let me look this up. George Michael. It's the one with Careless Whisper and Faith and all that stuff on it. Come
No,
on, man.
I know. I just don't remember the cover because it didn't impact my life the same way that it did yours.
Well, I had it. I had it at the album. Like it was huge. It was like this big. Like of course I knew what it looked like.
Yeah, I was too poor to have albums.
Yeah, fair enough. Before we went on the air, we were talking about how much we loved Weird Al. We both had Weird Al tapes.
No, I said that I listened to it. I always had to borrow mine from my Hindu buddy. So I went to middle school with a friend.
Yeah.
He was like whiter than me, and his parents were white, but they were converted to Hinduism. His full name was Trevelyan Nityananda Tabor, and
Yeah.
he let me listen to his Weird Al stuff. And he had an abundance of it because his parents would take him to the concerts, and that was the only access I had. So I loved Weird Al, but I did not listen to his tapes unless I was at somebody else's house. Oh.
I have an important image that I just searched that you guys can all look at because I'm allowed to post links. There we go.
All right, I'm gonna click on this and get a virus.
No,
Hey,
yeah,
look!
you guys.
It's George
It's
Michael.
George Michael.
Do you want to know what I love about this? Legitimately, I clicked on your link and it opened up an image, but
Yeah.
the the title of this literally for whatever website this is, this newnow.next.com says George Michael made me gay.
Oh shit.
Oh.
Yeah, well, he's an influential man. Ahead of his time.
Oh. Yeah.
What about Tallulah raises an interesting point, which is what about Garth Brooks' ass?
I prefer Chris Gaines.
I don't know who Chris Gaines is.
All right, fun fact, and I don't know why I know this, but Garth Brooks
Yeah.
sang under an alias called Chris Gaines for a short period as he tried to explore a pop career, and he even had like this chin goatee.
Really? Oh, like you'd like the one, like just this part?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So
Alright.
so if you ever want a good laugh, you just find yourself some Chris Gaines.
Okay, I'll check it out. I mean, I gotta be honest with you, man. I'm not gonna listen to Chris Gaines.
I don't expect you to. It's like like when I say to you, "Hey, it's Halloween," roughly, right? Like it's October, it's that time of year. So if you want a scary movie, I highly recommend watching Crossroads, starring Britney Spears. I say this because it's like the joke, but I don't expect you to actually watch Crossroads with Britney Spears. Even if it does have Zoe Saldana in it, I still don't want you to sit through it because that's the kind of friend I am.
Bro, you know what, man? So, when I graduated high school, I went to college for a year. I went to K-State, studied philosophy because, like, I could attend philosophy classes with enough attention that I could maintain my heroin use at the time.
Sure.
So I was dating this girl, and she loved all that like bubblegum pop stuff, and I saw that Crossroads movie probably 2 or 3 times. It was, like whenever we needed to take a break from watching every episode of Sex and the City, we watched stuff like that.
Yeah, my wife in her younger years was very, very much a Britney Spears fan, and so I've also endured the psychological torture that is Crossroads on more than one occasion.
Rough. That's rough.
Yeah, we're coming up on 10 years soon of marriage.
Congratulations.
Of marriage. It'll be
17
years in December of being together.
Really?
Yeah, like we've officially been together longer than we haven't been together.
No, that's cool. When the anniversary of September 11th came around this year, I realized like I'm twice the age I was when it happened. That was an
Yeah.
interesting realization. Yeah. Like more than half of my life has been well, half my life has been since then. A little less actually, a little less than half. If I do the math correctly, but like either way.
Yeah, in my head I was like, oh, so you're like 40 something? I didn't know that.
Yeah, hold on, let me figure this out a second. How long ago was this? Shit, I was so traumatized that I forgot how old I am.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
There
Yeah,
needs to be a card that transforms your discard pile into random dragons, writes Jay Merritt. I'd be okay with that card existing. I mean, you're just gonna do it, do broken things with good old 20 cost dragon friend.
I would like it if it did that, or if it made every card in your graveyard become Flesh Atronaut. Like you're just sculpting from the corpses of the dead, and every time you're making it into a Flesh Atronaut.
I like it. Skeletal mound. Extinction event.
Erratic is surprised that my marriage made it past the 7-year mark. Yeah, it did. Our actual 10th anniversary is legit on Friday the 13th.
Nice.
So
that's awesome, man. Congratulations. Are you going out next Friday then?
Oh, God's no, because then we have my my mother's memorial service the following day. So, hooray, 10 years! Oh, Mom died.
I understand, man.
So
either way, you should be really proud of yourself, and I'm sure you are, but that's a cool accomplishment.
I'm significantly proud of her. I don't know how anyone can put up with me for that long. I promise you that I am 10 times more obnoxious than I am ever in any capacity on Twitch or YouTube or anywhere else.
Yeah. Fair enough. What do you think? What do you say? I mean, like, let me run this past you. What do you say? We just open it up for some questions. Just see what everybody's got on their mind today.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
All right. All right, viewers, shoot your questions our way.
Question number 1. Dave Modi. Whoa, your mom died?
Wow.
He also followed it up with, my mom just got hit by a car on Tuesday and has multiple pelvic and arm fractures. First of all, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, that's a bummer, Dave.
That is a bummer. Auto accidents are never fun, and I hope that she has a speedy recovery. And yeah, my mom did pass away recently. That's the majority of why my content has been so sparse over the last like 2.5 to 3 weeks. Just because she was battling illness prior to passing, and so I was spending lots of time like at the hospital and whatever, and then obviously I've been doing other family related things since. So yeah, but hopefully things will be back to normal here soon. I got a lot of stuff I want to make. I just got to find the time to do it. So
Peters89 asks, what do you think about the amount of Crusader card draw? I think it's too much. But I don't think that any card needs to be nerfed necessarily. I think that you solve this problem by printing a red card, the color I like to see setting rules, and you make it a little overstated, like a lot of red creatures can be, like a 5/5 for 4, and it says each player can only draw 1 card each turn.
Yeah, I would be open to something like that. I would also be open to something that was maybe either a support or maybe it's a creature that just says, you know, when your opponent draws a card, or even if it's just when your opponent draws a card on their turn, maybe. So it's not even counting like rune breaks, but just if they're being aggressive or something along those lines. That either creatures take damage, or you shackle a random creature on their side of the board. Something that triggers defensively, right? Like they have to trade tempo for gas, if you will. Like, yeah, you can refill your hand, but when you do that, you're like taking a turn off to allow those decks to properly respond, right? Like I think that would... I don't know how you would work it out. Like I would have to try different things and test it, but something in that vein I think would be fine.
I like that. Nick Aim asks, do you guys like buffing or nerfing decks to make balances more? What do you think, man?
I mean, I think that it's a combination. I think that a lot of times that people don't like nerfs because it's like a feels bad moment, but many times the nerfs occur because of something that is just outright simply overstated, or maybe there's an interaction or a synergy that was just not predicted during the testing or QA. As good as the developers are, when you have a large card pool, it's hard to predict what a significantly larger than you player base is going to do with said cards, and they will find things that you might not have thought of. So nerfs are oftentimes like the right way to go, but I also do like buffs. I enjoy buffs that make underplayed cards more playable, like the Reeve buff and the Brynjolf buff, but I would also even be welcome to buffs that promoted new archetypes, right? So the Doggy Rot Mystic didn't result in like more support decks being played at the time, but I liked that buff when they did it. I thought it was like in the right vein.
I agree. What do you think about making Resolute Ally and Eastmarch Crusader forecast? That's Tallulah Soy. Eastmarch Crusader, I think, becomes replaced in every single deck that can run it by Thieves Guild Pickpocket if it costs 4.
Shadowfoot, you mean?
Shadowfoot.
Yeah. I would agree with that wholeheartedly, because you care more about the card draw than you do the actual body there. The 4/2. Like, whenever I play it, I basically am saying, like, I'm just drawing a card and making them use Firebolt, right? But, like, that's just enough. But if that starts costing 4, then it gets gutted. Resolute Ally, I think, is also... Like, my biggest problem with that is that all of the allies cost 3. And it would feel weird to have just one that costs 4. And while it can have a big impact, I don't necessarily think that it's... I don't necessarily think that it's, like, bad. It's certainly one of the better allies, but... I don't know. Cunning Ally hasn't shined in a long time, but Cunning Ally is still really strong when you can abuse it as well.
Yeah. Cunning Ally is the kind of card that, like, its power level ebbs and flows based on how many creatures you can kill with a Firebolt.
Yeah, pretty much.
It could be great again, after an expansion. Erratic Saw writes, will running pro tournament save TESL? I don't think Elder Scrolls Legends needs saving. I think it's doing well. I think that the fact that they're continuing to invest money in new promotions, new ideas, and they're remaining so in contact with us shows that the game's doing well.
Yeah. Also, for the record, I just realized that erratic, I'm pretty sure he's supposed to be erratic seesaw, as in...
Oh, that makes more sense.
I like the username, so I wanted to point that out. But I would agree. I don't think that running pro tournaments is going to save it, because I kind of touched on it a little bit, I think, last week, or at least I know I've said it on stream. I don't think that the majority of your Elder Scrolls Legends audience is like your traditional card game players. I mean, there's going to be some of the crowd that's coming over from Hearthstone, but most of the people that I would consider hardcore competitive Hearthstone players are entrenched in that, so they're less likely to come over. I'm not saying you don't have some, but the big majority of them are probably still there or still playing Magic competitively. And I think that really it just comes down to the reason that there is such a loud and vocal support for tournaments is, one, there are people like myself that if you want to like gauge if you're getting better at a game, right? Like you want to play good players and you want to kind of like try your hardest, and so like there's a competitive spirit that's missing. I don't necessarily think it needs to be like a pro scene, but even if it was just like some sort of supported tournament structure, it would at least let me know like this is where I'm like gonna be matched up against people of my skill level, because the ladder's an interesting thing. Not only is it like a best of one without like a real true tournament meta, and again, we kind of talked about this in the past, but also like I can be the best player in the game and never play against other top players and then just sit on top of the ladder, right? Like I can be rank 1 legend, but because on time of day when I play, or just randomness from matchmaking, I could get matched up against 500 legends, rank 1 players, you name it, for like 8 hours straight, right? So
Hey, have we ever matched up against each other on the ladder?
I think once or twice, very early in the game. I want to say
Yeah,
like last year, but not often because
that
I don't
makes
think
sense.
you and I play at the same time because I play so late.
That's true. That's true.
It's just like CVH and I, when he had a different streaming schedule, him and I used to run into each other all of the time, and now we barely
Right.
see each other. So,
Okay.
but yeah, so like there are people who are vocal because they want that competitive experience. I think there are people who are kind of vocal in general as well because right now, when it comes to rewards, when it comes to incentivizing, quote unquote high level play, like there is none. I don't even get a title for hitting legend, right?
Yeah.
Like I get a couple more soul gems and gold at the end of the month based on my finish for
Mhm.
legend. I might get my name on a list if I finish top 100, but like that's it. So I think that just like rewards and incentivizing would also go a long way, but I don't think that any of those things are saving legends. I
Yeah.
think that that's just the people who are competitive are also typically the people who log the most hours, so they also
I
feel
yeah.
like frustrated by its absence. Like
I agree 100% with that statement right there.
yeah, I would say that the average person who's saying, "Hey, I really want a tournament scene," is probably like dwarfing in terms of hours spent the average person who's like, "I don't really care one way or the other," right? Like
Yeah.
10 to 1 easy hours spent.
Hmm.
And when you play for that long, things get extra stale, extra fast, and you're looking for like that next challenge. So
That's true.
yeah.
I had to take a few weeks off from the game because I was doing some stuff with work. I was just real busy, and today was the first day I played in a while. I had an absolute blast, because I came back, fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Um,
So the
so
next one up was what's the general direction Elder Scrolls is migrating towards on the development side of things, whether that means like aggro controller, etc. And that's Jay Merritt asking.
okay, that's a good question. I think in an ideal world it ebbs and flows, right? Like towards more control, towards slower games, towards maybe faster games, and then you push back, and the meta reacts as players react, and it goes back and forth. I don't feel like there's an intentional design aim on the part of Direwolf and Bethesda to push one strategy over another. Um, I think that if things get in the meta were to ever get so bad that they needed to intentionally course correct like that, like we would be having a much less enthusiastic discussion about how much we love this game.
Yeah, I would say that there was a brief time period where that almost happened. If you remember when I'm trying to think of all the cards that were nerfed in that round, but if you remember when Slaughterfish spawning was nerfed,
Yeah, when they destroyed the actions decks.
yeah, that was the fastest and most aggressive I ever remember the meta being. The meta was
Yeah,
basically action assassin decks that were blazingly fast
yeah.
and prophecy battle mage decks that were faster than any incarnation of the current ones, even with Mystic Dragon. Like the old ones were
Right.
faster, and they
Because
did
of
it
Gladiators Arena.
well. Arena, but Slaughterfish spawning like was actually
Yeah,
really strong at 3, and there
right.
there was a whole bunch of like aggressive cards that kind of got nerfed to the
Yeah, I
ground.
agree.
But that was like the closest.
Yeah,
I think they do a good job of trying to keep everything relevant.
yeah. Um,
Uh, Next up, we had what would be a Legends card that feels like an MTG instant?
you could have support. I mean, like, you could have support cards that trigger when your opponent does things. I think that's as close as you're gonna get.
Yeah, I mean the cheat answer is anything with prophecy.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Lightning Bolt's a pretty great example of that.
Or so the other thing that I could think of would be like creatures or supports that, yeah, exactly like what you were saying, right? Just have a passive trigger on like when your opponent plays something, when your opponent attacks something, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I'm sure it's possible to program a card that, if this card is in your hand and your opponent does blah, this happens. But I think that having that level of hidden information, being that potentially relevant to a game, is not the sort of game Elder Scrolls Legends is or should be.
Yeah. So,
and also, I think cards like that would necessitate discard effects, targeted discard effects, and I also don't want to see those in Legends.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think that some people would like to see it, and I think that there could definitely be a strong competitive argument made for the effect. But if you've ever played against like true discard strategies in Magic or in other games, they're just not very fun to play against, because that is truly and I've said this too about like the idea of land destruction or its equivalent in this game. You don't want to encourage a playstyle where your opponent is literally doing nothing, right? Like when your opponent is just, draw, go, and I'm not talking on like turn 13 after Control Mage just slowly whittled your resources down, but I'm talking on like turns 3 and 4 and you're locked out for the rest of the game. Like that is a feels bad moment.
I totally agree.
Nikami. I say that because he's got like the 4 ends.
I know. I want to do that too.
Thoughts on more transform cards like Wabbajack and Pastry Dude? Pastry.
Pasty Dude needs to find a more legitimate way to make money. Wabbajack. I never want a card like Wabbajack to be competitive. And I think that was a problem with Bringer of Nightmares. I don't like that level of RNG winning games. Wabbajack is a perfectly balanced card, I think, for what it does, because it's not good enough. But I'm glad it exists because it's fun, and I like playing with it sometimes in the right situation. But a Wabbajack type card should never be good enough to be on the ladder. The Pastry Chef guy is great. Genius design. Excellent card. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I would like to see more transform effects, as long as they are either, guaranteed transforms like Sweet Rolls or like Mummify, or even if they were, within a certain reason, right? Like if it's maybe like one of 3 outcomes, but all 3 of them are reasonable, it's not like a 1-1 versus a 12-12 or something, like then that level is fine. But I would just in general like to see more transform effects.
I agree. It's one of those things that digital card games have a lot more ability to do, and I think things that your medium does best or uniquely are the things that should be focused on.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that just before we went live even today, right? Like I was talking...
I didn't know if you wanted to bring this up. I didn't know if you were saving it for another discussion.
I mean, I'm going to cover, because I don't think that one's going to go like full hard, but like I was talking about potential future video for the Forge, and one of the things that I had mentioned was how cool it would be if you had a card that would transform back and forth between 2 different states depending on how the game flows, right? So like it would be one version when you play it, and then if somebody breaks one of your rooms, it transforms. Then if you break one of their runes, it transforms back. Or maybe it's when you play actions and each time it flips, or whatever the case may be. I just think transform effects, just like Justin said, are like a great hallmark of digital card games because they can do it the best, and I'd like to see it explored more.
I agree. Yeah, I think that there's a whole lot of cool room for transforming stuff. I mean, you could even... I don't know. I mean, like, Dragon Mound is just like the tip of the iceberg as far as like things that can do things to your deck, right? Like, I'm imagining cards that, like, a support card that has, like, I'm getting on a little bit of a tangent here, but like one of the things you can do in a digital card game is, earlier I was talking about a support card that says, hey, play an action, something happens. Well, let's say you got a support card that says play 10 actions, and then when after you play your 10 actions, transform every card in your deck into, I don't know, Angry Hist Guy. And Angry Hist Guy is like the objective, right? You get to play these actions, and every deck that you play it in is going to feel different because every color's actions do different things. So you get the uniqueness of your class there, which I think is pretty key to the game. And then you can change every remaining card in your deck to something else. I think it's really cool the things you can do with a card game like this. I mean, imagine like a creature like, I mean, you could have a 4/4 for 4 intelligence creature, last gasp, the top card of your deck becomes Lightning Bolt. Like, that card offers all sorts of very interesting things that you can do, right? Like, you can kill it yourself on your turn so that you know that your opponent's next attack at you that breaks a rune is going to trigger a Lightning Bolt. There's all sorts of cool shit you can do with transform cards.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see stuff like that where maybe that's like Thieves Guild Shadowfoot 2.0 as well, right? Like, transform the top card of my opponent's deck into something, right?
Yeah.
Like, how cool would it be if you had, like, a 3-cost 1/3 guard, right? But its last gasp is the top card of your opponent's deck is transformed into a sweet roll. Like, it's an understated guard, and so it's like in the vein of Varanus Courier, but instead of you drawing a card, you're just denying your opponent the card.
I like it a lot. Yeah, I think that is as close to like discard as you should get in this game.
Yeah, I would agree, but I think that's to me that's the kind of cool card because that also has applications in like any matchup. Like, you're either potentially slowing down the gas of an aggressive deck, or in a control deck, maybe you get lucky and, you know, you just got rid of their Mirac or something because now it's a sweet roll. Like,
Mirac is exactly the card I was thinking
of. Well, of course, because that's the one that you want to
Right.
not have happen in a control matchup. So
Right, I agree. I like it. Where are we at here?
We are on Caniac, asking you specifically, and it's a little bit of a rehash, but how do we get more of the cards involved in the game, i.e. you see the same cards played mostly over and over, but a lot of the cards look like they'd be really good cards if ever used?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we touched on this a little bit. Like, I think the most obvious answer is that, you know, you make a bunch of cards that are concerned about the tribal effects. But I think that with the right cards and the right rewards for doing so, you could do this with a lot of things, right? When we were talking about Venom Tongue earlier, I keep bringing up this card. Unstoppable Rage and Quicksilver Crossbow are good examples of cards that push that card into playability. You know what I mean? I think that you could do that with a lot of cards with some really, you know, clever design, right? For example, like Quinral Burglar is, in some ways, an incredibly powerful card. Again, Quicksilver Crossbow is a card that, even though they don't see play together at all or very often, potentially makes Quinral Burglar that much more exciting. Because you can ping the face, trigger Pilfer. Suddenly you have a 9/9 now because you have a 4/4 +1/1 +4/4. And that's a lot of power. That's a lot of life gain. You need to look at each individual card, of course, to see like where you could make it work, right? But I think that there are scenarios where everything could work, right? Like, even like Studium Headmaster, which I think is one of the worst cards in the game, could be good if the right cards were printed to support it. Anything that triggers when your opponent draws cards makes Studium Headmaster theoretically a better card and more likely to see play.
Yeah, I could see something like that. I mean, people have been asking for a while whether or not mill would ever be like a real strategy in Legends.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar, mill is a card game term that originates from Magic the Gathering. There's a card called Millstone, and it's the idea where you win the game by making your opponent run out of a deck, right? Whether it's making them draw too much, making them put cards from, you know, their deck into their graveyard, whatever the case may be. But you just win by making them run out of deck. Now, Headmaster would be probably like an auto-include if that ever becomes a strategy, right? But it's not right now because of the size of decks and the inconsistencies, so...
You could, I think, encourage a lot of different kinds of decks if you printed like a Howling Mine effect. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it would be broken or not. I'm not one necessarily to speak a whole lot about balance for new cards, but a neutral 2-cost support card at the beginning of each player's turn, that player draws an extra card. I think you could do all sorts of crazy things with that. I think it would end up initially just going into tokens decks.
Sure.
But I mean, that is a way that you could double the pace of the game, and encourage mill. That might make Studium Headmaster potentially playable.
It's so funny that you say you think it would go into like tokens decks because I immediately went, I'm playing Control Spellsword now because that's their only weakness, right?
Yeah, actually, Spell Sword was the class I was thinking of, but I just went with a deck that could empty its hand every turn.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we could do to support mill. I just don't know.
It's not super fun.
I mean, some people like really enjoy it. It's just,
Yeah.
I feel like in a game like Legends, where at its core it's a game about creature combat. You know,
Yeah.
I was talking about this last week, right? Because some people were asking me, what do you think about like creatureless decks? And like we do the creatureless challenge for fun sometimes.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
like in terms of like a supported archetype with enough viability, I just don't see it ever happening because like when you define Legends to somebody who's never played the game before, right? Inevitably, somewhere in your first like 3 to 5 sentences, you're gonna say the words "it has 2 lanes."
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like a hallmark of the game. So
Yeah.
I don't ever see them heavily supporting anything that doesn't take advantage of creatures being on the board and like lanes. So like a true like action-based creatureless deck, I don't expect it. I also don't think that you're gonna see much like, even if it was like you put creatures on the board but the creatures like mill instead of doing damage to your opponent, right? Like I've thought about that. If you were ever gonna support mill, maybe that's the way you make it creature based. I still just ultimately feel like at its core they want it to be like a creature based game, which is why like that's where it's going to be. Like even when you look at cards like Jarl, right? Like Jarl's the alternate win condition, but it's based on flooding the board with creatures. And I think that's the closest you'll ever get to alternate win conditions because again, I don't think that they want you to bypass the other key mechanic that you would mention in the first 3 to 5 sentences, which would be runes, right?
Right.
So like I don't think we're gonna see many more, as cool as it might be, things that are just like if you do X, you outright win the game. We might see 1 or 2 here or there over time, but I don't expect to see a lot of them because you don't want things that bypass runes and you don't want things that don't care about lanes. Like that's the crux of the game. So
I agree. I think the most interesting and unique idea that like has come up in these discussions over the weeks about new ideas for cards that's come up for me is the fire rune suggestion, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've not been able to stop thinking about that. Like the suggestion was made a while back that cards be printed. I'm so old.
Right.
That cards be created that say something like transform your runes into fire runes, right? And a fire rune is like, let me just make shit up here. When that rune gets broken, it's not like what usually happens where you draw a card and if it has prophecy, you play it for free. Instead, something else happens. Like, for instance, you deal 4 damage to a creature or something. I don't know. Just making stuff up. But the idea of replacing runes with other things is just really not an idea I've been able to get rid of.
No, I mean, I think that's 100% something that needs to be explored. Again, without ruining too much of my future videos. You and I were talking before we went live that just in general, I'm a big fan of anything that's using runes as a resource and a mechanic. So the idea of making your runes do other things, I like the idea of turning them into like creature specific traps, meaning that like it does something to whatever creature or player broke the rune. So like maybe it's whatever broke the rune takes 4 damage. So if it was a creature attacked in, that creature takes 4 damage. If a player did it with an action, then the player takes 4 damage. But I like that idea because 1, it allows you to like be defensive and use runes in that manner, but also it gives the opponent the ability to properly like play around it, right? Like there's that interaction and decision making and skill involved. So but it
creates tension and counterplay, and I like that.
Yeah, but in general, I would love to see more stuff done with runes as a resource, You know, a lot of people have mentioned it, but I would also love to see something that restores runes. I know it has to be very expensive and balanced. Even if it's like a unique legendary, I would love to see something that's like a creature that, you know, maybe it has summon or something, but when it comes into play, it's you gain 5 life and restore 1 rune. But maybe it's like a unique legend or something. But just runes as a resource in general, I think there's a lot of rune.
I agree. Zombie Hunter 9x19 writes, Frost runes permanently shackles the creature that broke the rune, and it is now indestructible. I love it.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff that you could do with changing it and keeping it thematic.
I can see a new Chaos Arena effect where you wabbajack the creature that breaks a rune.
Sure.
I'd play that.
I would like to see each attribute get its own like rune replacement cards, right?
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like your next rune is a fire rune or something. Yeah. And then I would like to see like some sort of either neutral legendary support or neutral legendary creature that has like a comes into play effect of all of your runes become a random replacement rune, right?
Okay.
And then maybe based on your attribute, like let's just say one of you played fire rune and that's the intelligence one, right? The way that in the user interface that would be reflected, let's say, would be that rune now is like glowing blue to signify that one's been replaced. So then like for the term, you know, that you play your neutral legendary that replaces all your runes with a random one, that's how you would know which one was which because of the glow, right? So like the information would still be present to both players. There would still be counterplay and whatever, but I would love to see something like that, right?
I agree. That would be cool.
And I think that, you know, the attribute ones, like they auto fill themselves out, right? The intelligence one does damage. The endurance one will say is maybe the shackle one because it's all about stalling. The green one curses like creatures that hit it. You know what I mean? Like
the red one returns it to their hand.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe the endurance one is it silences it instead of shackles. But you know what I mean? Like it's pretty easy to, I think, fill those out.
I think that's a cool idea, though. It's one I'd like to see. Got a couple questions about alternate game modes with additional lanes or additional players, you know, like two-headed giant and stuff like that. I know that the guys at Bethesda, somebody at Bethesda commented on Reddit recently about this, said that they have no plans to do it at present, but, you know, they are aware that some people are interested in doing it. I think the problem, I mean, like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, which I probably am because I don't know shit about computers and stuff, but like, I think the problem is probably one of like the engine for the game, right, is designed to handle a certain kind of game, which is a 1 versus 1 game, right? And I think incorporating like 2 additional players into that would require a completely different like program.
I mean, you're not far off.
Nice.
I was gonna answer that question twofold. One, I was going to say that when they say they have no plans, I don't think it's because they don't want to do it. I just think that right now, if they had, you know, if they were to release their internal roadmap, I would personally, if I were a betting man, wager that they care more about getting the core game like up to snuff and polished and with all the features just for the core game experience that everybody wants, right? Snappier UI, different game boards, avatars, all those things that people are asking for, I think is likely their initial like focus. So it's probably just too far out on the roadmap. And then I think that part 2 of it is kind of what you were alluding to allow for like two-headed giant, for example. There's a pretty extensive like coding overhaul and Q&A and so forth that would need to be done and developed. And you have to kind of, you know, put your business hat on and say, you know, what's my return on investment there, right? Like if I'm going to put in, you know, thousands of man hours into getting this new feature out, like how many players are going to utilize it? You know, how does this bring a new experience? How do we monetize it? Like, I know that's not the fun conversation that we want to have about our games, but like at the end of the day, it is also like a business and there has to be a model for it. And I just, at least right now, when there are so many other glaring, you know, features missing for the base game. I just don't think that they're in a position where they can undertake such a big overhaul. That's not to say that they don't want to do it. It's not to say that we don't want to see it.
Yeah.
It's just not likely in the near future.
I agree.
I mean, I don't even know how they make money now with the generous free-to-play model and Twitch drops and no like alternate art pumping out for me to keep throwing money at their faces.
You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I probably spent $5 or $6 when Heroes of Skyrim came out. That's it.
I'm going to be honest. I don't think I've spent money since Heroes of Skyrim came out. Like,
yeah, and that was just to buy like some promotional thing.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm pretty sure I was the same way. I think they had whatever the promo was, and I think I bought that, and then that was it.
Yeah.
And that was just because they gave me an excuse to give them money. It's not that I don't want to. I love the game. I want to give them money. But
right.
It's, you know.
Yeah. I got all the cards. Or I have the resources to craft them. I mean, and you and I got paid basically to promote the game, the expansion with card codes, and we both gave them away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both did.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that you and I are also firmly in the like, oh, we got free stuff, let's give it away camp. Like
That's true. That's true, man.
Any code that I've ever gotten, I've given away,
yeah.
And I know that you've done the same.
Same here, yeah. That's cool. That's true. But I mean, like, it is at the point where like, if I'm offered alternate art or avatars or some stuff when the next expansion comes out, like I'll drop money on that just to support the game because I love the game. But I do wonder how they make money. No idea how.
Yeah, no, I mean that was like partially me making a joke, but also me being legitimately serious. Like I don't know how they make money. I want to give them money, and I feel like the easiest way to monetize it is, you know, custom avatars, different game boards, alternate art cards. Like I'll throw money at you all day long, Bethesda and Direwolf.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's an interesting question. Not one that I have to assume that it's not one we'll ever get an answer to. Dave Modi, I did spend about $150 in this game at one point when it first came out of closed beta.
Yeah. I mean, similarly, back when it first came out, you know, I bought one of the big pack bundles that I did for a YouTube video because I wanted to do like this is what you should expect roughly if you buy one. You know, I've bought whenever they've released anything, like when they did Follow the Dark Brotherhood, for example. Right?
Oh yeah, I bought Dark Brotherhood too, and then gave away the copy they gave me.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Madhouse, any of those things, right? Justin and I are in the same boat. Whenever they do those things, him and I pay for our versions, and then if Bethesda is generous enough to give us a code, we always give them away to one, give back to the community, and two, it's our way of like supporting the game that we love.
Exactly.
But you know, that's like once every 3 months, right? So I mean, have we spent money? Yeah, but like I'd be willing to spend more. I'm not saying, hey, like make me broke, but like you know, I remember you know, spending money on a WoW subscription, right? So like as far as I'm concerned, give me a reason to spend $5 or $10 a month on this, right? If it once a month, give me an alternate art pack for $5. Sold. I'll do that every month. Auto renew.
Yeah. You know, you made me think about something, which is, what do you think about a business model where it's like WoW, right? Where you pay $15 a month and then you have unlimited access to the cards?
I think I would be okay with that, or kind of what I was alluding to. I would love it if once a month they came out with like bundle packs, right? Like maybe it's a every month they release like an alternate art cards, one custom avatar, and one other cosmetic thing, right? And each one of those is always $4.99, or you can spend like $12 a month on a subscription and you'll always get all three. You know what I mean? Something like that. Sure, absolutely.
That's cool.
Because I think that the packs are still really important because you might have access to the cards, but you're going to run into this weird, like, what happens if you lapse on your subscription, right?
Yeah,
How is your
that's true.
collection reflected? What about premium cards? Like, I don't think that having it reflect your collection is right, but I do think that if they had, you know, like some sort of like loot crate, if you will, but for in-game items that you were just getting, you know, monthly because you'd subscribed. I mean, I would do that.
That's a good point, because I have a subscription to Elder Scrolls Online that I pay for every month, even though I don't play that game that much. And what honestly keeps me paying that $15 a month is that I get those loot crates that I can then put my characters in to dance in places to make dance outro videos.
Right. It's just, you know, like you feel bad until like you get your once
Yeah,
a month item and you're like, oh yeah, this is really cool. I'm glad I'm doing this. And I
yeah,
would totally do that for a card game. I'm actually kind
yeah,
of surprised that
yeah.
you know, more
Huh,
card games haven't done that. I'm sure that somebody's done some market study, right?
right.
And there's probably a reason behind why they don't do it, but I really feel like if it was just like for cosmetic items and whatever, that
Yeah.
like I know I would spend money on it. So
I'm sure that the business model they have now where you buy packs, I'm sure that, and I don't mean to be too cynical here, but like, um, so I've spent a lot of my time studying addictions counseling. Like, I feel like the model right now is set up sort of like some vice industries where a small percentage of users subsidize the cost of entry for everyone else because they spend a
oh,
vastly disproportionate amount of money.
absolutely. I mean that's basically every game that is like a microtransaction business model. It's 100% it. Like your goal is to get the whales, right? The whales, what they're called.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean that's it. But I'm just also saying that like you could still leverage a steady income, I think, if it was just for that small amount, right? Like everybody
Yeah.
is doing their business model for the whales, but
Hmm.
I'm saying that you can like have your cake and eat it too if you offered something else, even if so. Like, hear me out. Even if it's not like alternate art stuff, like
Hmm.
maybe the problem with doing something like that is that you know, I don't know the time and the effort and the money costs associated with alternate art, right? Like, I'm not going to pretend to. But Gwent, for example, has a type of currency that is entirely meant for like upgrading your regular cards to premium versions.
Hmm.
So, like, if they introduced a third kind of currency and my monthly subscription gave me X amount of, you know, gold bars to turn my whatever, right? Like, I would spend $5 a month just to have a steady like income of premiums
Yeah.
because again, like I'm into the cosmetic stuff. Like that's something for me. Like, are you trying to tell me CVH isn't going to auto subscribe to that if that's and there are others like us. I know that there's not a lot, but
I hear what you're saying. I mean, I got a premium high Rothgar, man. Like that's all I need. Oh, and I have a premium Spider Worker, and I have a premium Golden Saint. And I only kept the Golden Saint because I thought it was funny. I needed to be able to say Golden Saint a few times.
I mean, yeah, I
Yeah.
have golden saints and I did it for the same reason, but
Yeah, there you go.
I
Well,
can't.
dude, you got Golden Gerald Foragers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you just gotta do it. Dano says whale is such a distasteful and insulting way to refer to the people who are maintaining your business model by themselves. Interesting fact: that term is actually originated from casinos. So, if you've ever heard about like high rollers going to casinos and then they have like their rooms comped, and depending on how much you're spending, you might even get your own personal handler, right? People that are literally there just to make your experience, you know, pleasureful and keep you on the gambling floor and do those things. Like that's actually where the term comes from. So, does it sound distasteful? Yeah, probably because it came from people who run casinos. Uh, um, but yeah, like that's. I mean, the idea is that like there's the fish, and then there's like the big things in the ocean, right? And so it's whales is how they refer to it, but that's actually a casino term.
I like it. Back in my previous line of work, we called them junkies.
I mean, yes.
I mean, like I include myself in this. Like I spend money in this game, and I love this game, and I totally understand the appeal of having all premium cards. I get it. It's not a problem. I don't know that there's anything inherently wrong or immoral about capitalizing on a small audience to support something that a lot of people enjoy.
No, there's.
I think if like
there's
I think
not.
if Legends was out there, like if people were like stealing stuff from their parents to pay for their Legends fix, like then we'd have a different kind of discussion. But
I mean, I would just throw this out here and say that like, you know, that's an entire political platform. Having a few pay for the many.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that, right? Like Spock is on board with this thought too.
So Nasdaq says, Charmer, how far along are you and Justin with your Centurion title?
I have 3 games in. I got them today.
Fun fact: I have 0 on Centurion. There are two reasons for that. One, I'm waiting until I pull a Dragon Mound. I refuse to craft it, and I haven't opened one yet. And 2, because I'm still farming the godforsaken play shouts draw Nords one. Every time I play the Ulfric decks, Ulfric is like in the last 10 cards of my deck. I've had to use like 4 of my 6 shouts just to survive to get to where I draw them, and then I either die when I draw them, or by the time I play him and I'm in a position where I could maybe draw some Nords, the people just concede because they assume I'm trying to win, despite the fact that I've not attacked you at all and it's a casual game. Like, I just am still grinding the fucking Nord one.
Yeah.
So I've done no games on Centurion yet. Like, that's the next one once I'm done with the Nord one. But the Nord one has been... Like, I got the Gortwog one so much faster than this stupid bastard. Nord one.
The Gortwog one will get me the mad.
Yeah.
That's the last thing I need for that. And I think I need like 4 orcs at this point.
Yeah, I did the Gortwog one in less than a week, but that's because I got really lucky and I had one game where I pulled 23 orcs with Gortwog because I was in casual and somebody quickly identified this guy's playing orcs, but he's not attacking me. And so I played Gortwog, and he just let it roll, and then I conceded to him at the end, like, out of respect. But I seriously got over 20 orcs in one game, so...
That is how I got the Clone Master, the one where you have to have 3 copies of the same legendary.
Oh, yeah.
I was playing Wisp Mother Assassin. My plan was to clone Ungolem. My opponent figured out what I was doing, got me to 1, and then Ungolem was the last card in my deck, and this dude let me draw every card in my deck. I was so happy with this guy that I posted on Reddit, like thanking him, like telling him he was an awesome dude and stuff. Like, this was a real bro. This was cool. I will say about Gortwog. Next time we have an adventure or a story thing, I'm going to complete that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't know. I didn't know why I didn't complete this on Fall of the Dark Brotherhood. It didn't occur to me. I even remembered to complete some other quests that were going to be really tiresome otherwise. But yeah, I mean, if you don't know this, the first time you complete missions in adventures or in story mode in the very first the intro to the game, before you beat that mission for the first time, you can complete quests in it. So that's a good way to just kind of cheese out some titles that are hard to get. Like in The Immortal, the one where you have to have 100 life, that's a pretty easy one to pull off against certain AI decks.
Yeah. Sadly, I had already done all of the, what I'll call like core set titles when Fall of the Dark Brotherhood came out, so like I didn't have that ability. But there's a ton of Skyrim ones I don't have done that I will likely abuse against AI the next time that's available.
Absolutely. Yeah, it works when you go back into Masters too, but I beat Masters in the original in like the same week or same couple of days. So when I finally remembered what I was needing to do, instead of just like trying to prove to myself how awesome I was, I I decided to make a mental note to not do the exact same thing again in the future.
Yeah.
And in fact, I got the one where you have to summon Devaith Fear's daughters 20 times or whatever. I got that one by just drafting Devaith Fear every single time I played Solo Arena, and then setting up board states once I gained control of the game and I had Devaith Fear, where like I didn't care if I won or lost, I just needed to summon like 6 of his daughters.
That's really funny. I got the one for dealing damage with Iron Atronach before I ever opened an Iron Atronach. I got all of that from Arena.
Nice. That's nice. Yeah, I used to play an Iron Atronach on the ladder, so I got that one pretty quickly.
Yeah, you know, you high roll and whale you with your...
Bro, I killed a guy with an Iron Atronach today.
I know. I was watching, and it was fantastic. And I stand by my line of play was better, though. I think you should have played Gravesinger and then looped your Blood Magic Lord, but...
That's true. Hey, Heatfire Ash, don't worry about the fact you don't own Iron Atronach. That card has hidden text, which sort of like how Daggerfall Mage is always in your hand on turn 2 or 3. Iron Atronach reads, your opponent is about to draw a Manticora or a Territorial Viper.
Oh, see, for me, it's always Leaf Lurker. I don't know what it is. It's always Leaf Lurker.
Yeah, Leaf Lurker, too. That's the third one, yeah.
But
I guess there's Sanctuary Pet now, but nobody's played Iron Atronach since Sanctuary Pet got printed.
Right. I even own premium Iron Atronachs.
Do you really?
I own 2 of them, I'm pretty sure.
That's what's up.
Just because I opened them, like not because I crafted them by any means.
Right.
I should find an excuse to play those.
It's fun.
I still,
you know, it's not a terrible card.
Yeah, I still stand by. I really want Mage's Guild Retreat to be buffed to include all of the Atronachs, and then it might actually see play.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's incredibly powerful, Dano, but its weaknesses are just too glaring.
It's actually kind of funny to me because as much like hate as Quinwall Burglar gets for being unplayable, I think that even Burglar is still probably better than Iron Atronach. Like at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree. You can't answer a Burglar on turn 5 or 6. You're probably gonna lose.
Yeah.
Playing an Iron Atronach on turn 12 in no way guarantees your victory.
Yeah, like not only have they had twice as many turns to draw the answer, but there's a solid chance that like you can't even play the card because it won't be enough to stabilize.
Right.
And yeah, like I wish the card was better. It'll see play the moment that we find 0 cost ways to
reanimate it,
to give it charge.
Oh yeah.
If we get 0 cost items in blue, I'm trying to think. Are there 0 cost items in blue? Aren't there daggers?
I think the only 0 cost item is red.
No, we got. Oh, you're right. The daggers cost 1.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're playing Atronach, you're in ramp, so maybe that's it. I was just trying to think. Maybe you could play a sorcerer deck where the idea is to use the enchanting support to give your items charge, and then play Iron Atronach and give it charge.
I'd be down with giving Iron Atronach charge.
Yeah, right? There's your... I'm trying to get your wheels turning.
I like this. Hold on. Let me do some math here. In Sorcerer, you could ramp to a point where you can put a Mentor's Ring on a Shadow Mirror and give Iron Atronach charge.
Yeah. That's also another possibility, but even without Mentor's Ring, I was just thinking about, again, the support that makes any equipment you draw get a random keyword. So you just have to roll charge on an equipment, and then you can also roll Mundus Stone for max memes.
That's true. I don't remember who it was. I saw somebody on Twitch one time with a Mundus Stone out, 2 Flesh Atronachs in hand, and like 40 creatures in his discard pile. He's like, oh, there we go, Schwitty. Yeah, he was like, all right, we got 2 chances at this. Sure enough, he hit it.
Yeah. Those are the dirty ones. Like they're so satisfying, but like they simultaneously make your skin crawl.
You know, there was a time when Mundistone saw a lot more ladder play than it sees now. I'm glad those days are over.
You know, you've said that, and now it's gonna come back.
I'm sure
you just brought it out of the shadows. I'm gonna have to save up and craft a premium one now.
A premium Mundistone?
Yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that because I threw it in my Control Mage deck the other day, just like for giggles. Like I would legitimately, I was like, I know I'm making this work, against my own best interests, but I just really wanted to give Undying Dragon charge, and in my head that was the way I was gonna do it.
I like that.
So I was running like 3 Devours and Mundistone, and
I agree. You know what? Zombie Hunter 9x19 writing about the legendary Boots of Binding Speed, and then somebody, Doc PBGB, writing about the artifacts. That would be a hell of a mini expansion. Right? The Daedric artifacts.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get a neutral Boots of Blinding Speed, though. Like, we're never going to get a neutral give something charge.
Yeah, that would break the game. 100% that'll never happen. But
like, I think
I would love to see the Daedric artifacts as an expansion.
I think in one of my episodes of The Forge, I had said, like, I wanted to give us, have a support read, give a target creature every keyword. And I think that I made it a unique legend that costed 10. And even in my video, I was like, this might still be too broken. Like, the idea of just, even at a huge tempo loss, the idea of giving something charge and it can be anything in the game is, like, backbreaking.
Yeah, I agree. Dano writes, Mundus is pretty much in the same category as Wab. Dirty if playable. Yeah, I agree. And Mundistone, unfortunately, has seen play from time to time in good decks.
I mean, I hope I'm not, like, playing the Necromancer here, but if there was ever a time to play Mundistone, a time when Shadowfen Priest is being ran in 2s and Belligerent Giants are...
is nowhere to be seen.
Well, I mean, they're really just, like, in Unstoppable Rage decks.
Yeah.
Would probably be the time.
That's true. So
I firmly support the mid-mage Royal Sage Mundistone.
Oh god. You know what? I think honestly, if Mundistone's good in any deck right now, I think you could put it in Ramp Scout and be pretty successful.
Oh yeah, I think that it's probably fine there, and I would also say that if you could get enough defense into any Altar deck, I think that it actually shines on Altar decks, too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that those Hrothgar Warrior decks, you know, you're already rolling dice. Why not double down? And I think part of the thing is with those decks is that those decks run a lot of Prophecy creatures and randomly giving your keywords to your Sharpshooter Scouts.
See, for me, I think that the problem with the Hrothgar ones, though, is, like, you already take, like, almost like a 0 tempo turn when you play Forge, and taking a second one for the Mundistone early is probably not okay. But the reason that I would justify it in an Altar deck is if you already have your Altar in play, then the turn you play Mundistone, you're just triggering Altar to get immediate value out of it, so it's not as bad. Still not great, but potentially not as bad.
Dude, wasn't it in the Heroes of Skyrim preview event when you and I were playing against each other and you had Echo of Akatosh on the table and your Odoving got, was it Charge or Drain?
I think it was Drain.
Yeah. See, that's the sort of thing that I just don't need happening.
I will admit, like 6 or 7 months ago, and I think there might even be a clip of it on YouTube somewhere, but I was playing a Control Mage that again was running Mundistone. Because for me, like, control decks I think are the safe place to run Mundistone, because typically those are the decks you're most likely to take like negative tempo on, because you're just like sitting back, and rolling Drain, rolling Guard, those types of things are much more, in my opinion, important in control decks. But I was playing it in Control Mage, and I play Odoving. My opponent is at less than 10 health. My Odoving gets charged, but I pass the turn because I'm so used to like playing Odoving and then passing the turn that like I completely miss lethal off of a charging Odiving, and I'm just like, ah,
that is amazing.
yeah. Because like who's expecting that, right? Like, and I even as I was clicking the arrow, was like, that's weird. It wasn't. Oh, too late.
I've done that with similar effects in Eternal before.
Yeah,
I have to admit. Zombie Hunter 9x19 writes, I just realized this is pretty much the official bromance of the Elder Scrolls Legends community. Yeah, I mean, we're like the only two content creators who like regularly do stuff together, I think, right?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if you would count like the casting stuff, right? Like Link and Gym Class get together and they cast the one tournament, and obviously like Schwitty and the other guys from the championship series do their casting.
That's true.
Gym Class also does his podcast, so
yeah, which is a good listen. I mean, like I enjoyed being a guest on his show a couple times.
Yeah, no, I like Mike a lot. Like he's funny.
Good people. I agree.
So
that's what's up.
I was gonna say, right, I think it's a good time to probably do last call for the questions. We're just past our 2-hour mark. Just usually.
Yeah, we once again completely succeeded at hitting 50 minutes.
Yeah. Fun fact: when him and I first started talking about doing a podcast, which was like months ago, we talked about doing one for like months. Never did it.
Yeah.
But when we were talking, we were like, "How long do you want to do it for?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. Like, let's target like an hour, right?" we have never been under 2 hours. Not once.
I know. Yeah. Oh, dude, we should play Divinity Original Sin 2 together. That game is fucking sweet. I'm sorry, man. Like, I love that game.
Sure. Like, I don't own it.
I don't know, man. It's okay. Here's the thing. It's so dry. I would never watch anybody play this game. It's an isometric RPG, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but I really enjoy playing it.
I mean that's fine. There's plenty of stuff that I enjoy playing solo.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I recorded and narrated 2 Heroes of the Storm games, and I released those on the YouTube channel, only to realize like narrating for half an hour a single game like totally ruins the fun for me. And like even though the videos were received all right, like I cannot do that to myself.
Yeah. If I was ever gonna do a single player game like video for YouTube, it would be one of the like no narration, only game audio, like those run throughs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
So,
J. Merrick wants to know if there's ever going to be a set of cards based around Horse Armor DLC. I think Horse Armor absolutely must be a monthly reward card.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
I've already joked that I want a player housing expansion.
Yeah. Hearthfire. Absolutely, dude. Let's get on that.
Like, if I can't get married to the cards on my board, then why am I even playing this game?
Absolutely. It's important to me. Any other questions? Oh, what happened to Tiny Grimes? Tiny Grimes now streams and releases videos for a Star Wars card game. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't remember the name of it either.
Yeah, I see him going live all the time. He plays Legends from time to time. He's on my friends list. I see him playing every now and then.
Yeah. Shannara says that they are interested in Hand of the Gods.
Yeah, I've been playing that.
I've been playing it a little bit as well. I plan on doing it for a bunch of card games because I've been playing a bunch of stuff lately, but I plan on doing like intro, like get to know the game videos for Hand of the Gods, Shardbound. God, what's the name of that other one that I was just trying?
Yeah, I was gonna say Dano's got the point. Hand of the Gods is nowhere near balanced.
No, you can, in my opinion, 100% tell it's not made by card game players.
Absolutely.
Duel of Summoners. That's another one that I was gonna potentially show. and then maybe another mobile game. Like I know I did the one video on Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, which is not a card game, but it's a mobile game that I'm hardcore addicted to. But I've
Yeah.
been playing another one that's going to be, it's currently released in Japan, but it's going to be released globally soon, called The Alchemist Code, that I'm also really enjoying. So
Cool.
I've got some non-legend stuff coming, just because I've been playing a lot of different stuff, because I haven't had the opportunity lately to sit and play the way I want. So it's
Yeah.
forced me to try new things, but
Yeah,
I got some legend stuff on deck as well.
man, I just recorded 3 hours worth of fucking video for Legends today, dude. I'm chopping that up and turning that into YouTube videos for a week.
I mean, it sounds fantastic. So
It is. Sandra just got a job as a contract employee for the nonprofit that I work at, to do video edit, like record and manage their YouTube channel and stuff. And actually got it on the strength of the work she's done on my channel. So she's going to be using the editing software, and we only own one computer, to do that for a while too. So having that content already recorded is going to be huge for the next week. Are you guys interested at all in Magic the Gathering Arena? Yeah, I signed up for the beta. I have not gotten an invite.
I would say I'm loosely interested. The only reason that I am not as interested right now as maybe some of the other creators is that I've been playing Magic for legitimately so long that I already know what to expect from it. Like it's either gonna be bad or it's gonna be good, but even if it's good, it's still just Magic. So like for me, it's more of I just kind of want to see what their roadmap is for it as a platform, and then I'll decide if I'm diving in. But to me, like, I'm more interested in trying out like new card games that I've never experienced before than just playing like a new way to play a card game I've been playing for 2 decades. So like I'm not saying that I won't play Arena, I'm not saying that I won't enjoy it. I'm just not as excited for that as something brand new that I've never played before.
I agree. I mean, I'm gonna play it because like I enjoy Magic and I'm not burned out on it, but like I have a lot of other things going on.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. And if it's free, awesome. That's what I can afford.
Yeah, I mean, if it's free, but like, let's be honest.
That's true. You're gonna end up playing a bunch of crawl worms if you're not unloading money on packs, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll say last question here. Nasdaq wants to know if either of us have ever played Netrunner. I assume he means Android Netrunner.
I've read about it, but I've never played it, and I don't know what it is really.
I played it a bit a couple of years ago, but not like super heavily. But again, like I'll try any card game. So like I played a little bit of Android Netrunner. I went through a phase where I played like a lot of Dominion, a lot of Ascension. There was another like pirate themed game that was very similar to Netrunner that I played for a bit. Yeah, I'm a card game sucker. Like I'll play just about anything for a little bit. It's just whether or not it holds me is the real test.
Yeah. I agree. It's always possible something amazing comes out. There's a Game of Thrones game?
Yeah.
Sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, there is. I know which one he's talking about. But I'm also a Fantasy Flight nerd, so. Speaking of which, there is a Fallout Fantasy Flight game coming out, or might even be released now. If not, it's coming out soon, that I'm really excited to try.
Cool.
I have, like, you can't see it here, obviously, but I have the World of Warcraft Fantasy Flight game, like, board game, like, literally right there, and a bunch of other Fantasy Flight games. Arkham Horror is right there. Anything that, like, requires me to punch out tokens for, like, half an hour and then take another hour to set up the board is my kind of board game. Like, I like board games that you gotta take, like, a vacation day for, so... That's me.
Fair enough. All right.
So, yeah.
Great show, man. Great show.
Well, yeah, I mean, you showed up.
No, dude. It was a team effort. I'm sorry I'm a little low energy. Like, I didn't realize how much
the other stream was gonna take out of you.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry.
No, you're only low energy because like it's approaching, end of the day for you. So.
That's true. I've been up for a long time. I am tired.
Dang, I don't have it there.
You've probably been up longer than me, actually.
Man.
And what's crazy about my job is that, like, I don't know, like, it's not physically demanding at all. It's just like at the end of the day, I'm so emotionally taxed. Like, I have to go do something else after the end of the day.
Yeah, I know what it's like to be just mentally exhausted.
Yeah.
That's what I try to blame all of my play mistakes on, but nobody believes me. But like when I've worked two jobs and then I come and I'm trying to stream and pay attention to chat and also play a game, like I'm legitimately mentally exhausted. My plays at 2 a.m. are way different from my plays at like 6 p.m.
That's true.
So
I agree with that. I play much better on the weekends when I don't work.
Yeah.
But I mean, I right now I'm working 6 days a week. Like, this is like the downside to being a salaried employee, right? Like, they're like, hey man, you got to get all this shit done. And I'm like,
Yeah. I was salaried for 6 years, so I know what it's like.
Yeah. Well, it's all new to me, man. I mean, it's an interesting experience, like, finally adulting at my age, right? Because, like, my only previous work experience is like I was a fucking janitor in prison, and and I've work experience like since I got out, like doing nonprofit work. But before that, like I just kind of sold dope, and I wasn't even that good at that. So,
well, let me just say right now publicly that I feel for you and I empathize with you, and I know that you just started grad school, and as somebody who also worked full time as a salaried employee and did grad school. I know what you're about to go through. I also did it with small children. So,
right. See, I just have the cat. So, I mean, once again, you got me here.
So I'm just saying, like, you can feel free to call me anytime. I will do your homework for you.
Good looking out, dude. All right, man.
We're going to call the show here, and I'm going to continue streaming like I always do afterwards. But I think this was good. Yep. This was fun.
Yeah. If you guys have any suggestions for things you want to hear us talk about, or like even challenges you want to see us involved in, like Creatureless Challenge. I know there's been some talk about like the Singleton 70 card deck challenge, which is something I think we're going to talk about. Let us know, and we will do our best to entertain you.
Yeah. Bye. See you next week.
Adios.